Hi, everybody, and welcome to our spooktacular Halloween-themed live event. We're so glad you're joining us today. My name is Laura McCrone, Education Editor of Scholastic Math and Dynamath magazine, which shows students how math is found everywhere, from art to pop culture to bats. I'm here with my colleagues, Lauren Morris, Education Editor of our STEM magazines, and Blair Rainsford, Editor for our Early Childhood magazines. Did you know with Magazines Plus, you get fresh, high-interest content delivered all year long, in print, online, or both? Plus, every story, video, and activity is designed to keep your students engaged. And today, 3 lucky teachers will win a free Scholastic Magazines Plus subscription for their class. For a chance to win, drop us your students' questions about bats in the Q&A section. Also, we love reading your tweets, including pictures and videos about how you use Scholastic Magazines Plus in your classroom. If you're live tweeting during this event, be sure to tag @ScholasticTeach and @Bats4Life. Okay, let's get started. We are joined by our very, very special guest, bat expert and conservationist, Dr. Kristen Lear, who we had the honor and pleasure of interviewing for our current October issue of Scholastic Math magazine. Let's give a big, batty welcome to Dr. Kristen. Hi, Dr. Kristen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bat Week. This is my favorite time of the year. My name is Dr. Kristen Lear, and I'm here to talk today all about bats. Now, I'm not your typical doctor. I have a PhD in bat conservation, which means I get to work around the world to study bats and to protect them in their natural wild habitats. So it's honestly the coolest job ever, and I'm super excited to be here today to share all about bats with you all.
And we are so excited to have you, Dr. Kristen. Today, we're going to learn more about bats, their unique adaptations, and debunk some common myths about this favorite Halloween animal. So, are these animals spooky or smart?
Well, we're going to find out together by starting with the basics. Dr. Kristen, what got you interested in bat conservation? And what is bat conservation?
That's a great question. So bat conservation is basically working to prevent bats from going extinct. So unfortunately, a lot of bats around the world are under threat of going extinct. And so as a bat conservationist, I work to study bats and to work with people to protect bats in their habitats and to prevent them from going extinct. And I actually got my start in bat conservation kind of unofficially in 6th grade when I built bat houses for my Girl Scout Silver Award. You can see the picture here, me and my mom and dad and my grandpa who helped me build these bat houses. And I put them up in a local park in Cincinnati, Ohio, where I grew up. And this was my first time getting to really learn about bats and to figure out how I could help them, even though I was only 12 at the time. So this was how I got started. And then I went on to study bats in college and have done a lot of bat work in places like Australia and Mexico and Hungary and the US. So it's been a really cool career ever since.
Dr. Kristen, what are some of the things you love most about working with bats?
Oh gosh, there's so many cool things. I think one of my favorite parts is getting to explore deep inside caves. A lot of bats around the world live inside caves. And so, we get to crawl through these tight little spaces looking for where the bats are living so that we can actually, study them and work with them. So that's one favorite part. I also really love to get dressed up. Obviously, bats are really cool and they have there's lots of bat stuff out there. So I love to don my bat gear. The picture here on the left is at a festival where I get to lead bat kids activities and arts and crafts. And then the picture on the right, I love this one. This is from Reinvented Magazine's Princesses with Power Tools magazine calendar. And they have this calendar showcasing women in STEM. And I got to share, bat conservation as a cool career through being a princess using power tools. That was pretty fun. And then I think, yeah, it was something very different. I haven't really done that too much, but it was really fun. Oh, and this one, I get to give talks about bats to lots of different people. And this is at the National Geographic headquarters in Washington, DC. I actually got to get up on stage in front of hundreds of people and talk about my bat research. So I love to share about bats with others and to help kids learn how they can become bat scientists too, just like I did. And then I think probably the coolest part of my job is actually getting to see bats up close and personal. Like we get to get trained in how to capture bats so that we can, weigh them and measure them and study them. And so we actually get to see bats up close that most people don't get a chance to ever do. So I think bats are pretty cute, and being able to actually see them up close is really, really fun.
Wow, that's super cool that you get to see them up close like that.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing some of those facts about bats. And many of our viewers are also reading about bat adaptations. Could you tell us more about what an adaptation is and why are they so important?
Absolutely. So adaptations are basically anything that an animal or a plant has that helps them survive. So it can be a physical characteristic like hair or fur. Like in this picture here, these bats have brown fur, which kind of helps them camouflage into their cave background, which helps protect them from predators. It can be these Honduran white bats, which also, yeah, I love these Honduran white bats because I like to refer to them as cotton ball bats or marshmallow bats because they kind of look like little marshmallows.
And they're so cute, like marshmallows or cotton balls, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they got little noses. But this actually, the white fur actually is a form of camouflage, which you wouldn't really think because white is so bright and distinct. But the cool thing about these Honduran white bats is that they actually roost or sleep up inside leaves, like big leaves, and they make a little tent. So you can see they're up inside the tent. And when a predator is walking underneath the leaves on the ground and they look up, they see the leaf and they see the sky behind the leaves, and the sky looks white. And so the bats with their white fur actually look like the sky. And so it helps camouflage them, even though it doesn't look like it would be camouflage, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I had no idea. Usually you think of camouflage as brown or green or something. That's so cool.
Exactly. So that's one adaptation. We have other adaptations that have these insect-eating bats can have humongous ears. And those ears help them hear insects that are flying around or crawling around on the ground, and then the bat can pounce on the insect. So the huge ears are an adaptation to help these bats hunt. And there are even carnivorous bats. There's bats that eat things like rodents and frogs, birds, and there are some bats that even eat other bats, which I think is pretty darn cool. Yeah, and there's one of my favorite bats is the bulldog bat, which has humongous back feet and toes, and they actually skim across the water and catch little tiny fish. And so they literally go fishing with their big adaptation of their big feet, which is kind of mind-blowing in my opinion. Like it's pretty cool.
A bat that goes fishing. That's
exactly
wild.
Yep.
I wanted to ask about a bat that a lot of people think is spooky, which is the vampire bat. I think a lot of people think they're spooky because they drink blood, but could you tell us a bit more about vampire bats?
Yeah, so vampire bats are actually some of my favorite bats. And there are only 3 vampire bat species in the whole world out of over 1,400 different species of bats. So only 3 of them are vampire bats that eat blood. And they're all found in Mexico and Central and South America. So, we don't get them up here in the US. And they do feed from blood from other animals, usually things like pigs or birds, kind of bigger animals out in the wild. And they make a little tiny cut, usually in the foot or the leg of an animal while it's sleeping. And then that cut bleeds and they lap up the blood, kind of like a cat laps up milk. So it's It's not like the scary movies. Yeah, it's not like, in the movies where a bat's latching onto you. They don't do that. And the really cool thing about vampire bats is that in their saliva, so in their spit, they have an anticoagulant, which is a fancy word to say it's a chemical that helps the blood flow from the cut. And scientists have actually developed a medicine called Draculin.
Draculin.
I know, it's a pretty awesome name, but it's used, and it can be used to fight blood clots in people. So vampire bats are really neat, and it's not the scary things that you see in movies.
Yeah, it sounds like they're really helpful, and
they are
not scary.
They are, and they actually they're very helpful with each other too. They're very social, so I think they're really cool.
Lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that is a myth that we just debunked, that vampire bats are scary. And I wondered if there were any other myths that our audience might think are true about bats that you'd like to debunk.
Absolutely. So, we hear the term or the phrase blind as a bat, right? I think we all hear that. That is not true. All bats have eyes, like my little googly eyes here. All bats have eyes, and they all can see perfectly well. They even have better night vision than us. And some bats, like fruit bats, can even see in color. So yeah, all bats have eyes and can see. I think that's one of the big myths. But another of the myths that I hear a lot is like bats are dangerous and are going to get kind of caught in your hair, and they're going to fly at you. It is true that they can fly. They're the only mammal in the entire world that can fly. But if you see a bat getting kind of close to you, swooping down near you, kind of like in this picture, I'm sitting at a bat cave, what they're probably doing is hunting insects. So they're probably hunting the mosquitoes and the gnats and the little things that are flying around you. They're trying to get those to eat. So yeah, they don't get caught in your hair, like we often see in kind of get that saying that get caught in your hair. Obviously, I'm sitting here and have not had a bat stuck in my hair with millions of bats flying around. And I think the one thing I also hear a lot too is bats are rodents, or flying rats. That also is not true. Bats are actually more closely related to people than they are to rodents. So that's a pretty cool fact that I think a lot of people don't realize.
Well, thanks, Dr. Kristen. I wrote an article for our October issue of Scholastic News, this one right here, and I got to learn some really cool things about bats and two very important facts. I think the most important thing is that they're very cute and they are very helpful. This fuzzy guy here is covered in pollen and he's helping plants grow. Can you tell us more about how bats help our environment?
Absolutely. So bats are really important. Like you mentioned, pollinators. I think people don't realize that so many bat species around the world pollinate many plants. Over 500 plants around the world are bat pollinated. So things like mangoes, bananas, cacao, which we use to make chocolate, all of these are bat pollinated. So really without bats, we would not have all of those awesome things, in our lives, which I think would be really a sad world without chocolate for sure. A lot of bats, most bats around the world eat insects. So they're, hunting things like beetles and moths and sometimes mosquitoes. And a lot of those insects can be things like agricultural pests that destroy our crops like corn and cotton and pecans. So by having bats around, they're helping eat all those pest insects and helping protect our crops, which again is awesome for us. And the third kind of ecosystem service that they do is seed dispersal. So there are bats around the world that eat fruit. And when they eat the fruit, they kind of like gobble up the fleshy part of the fruit and the juice, and then they spit out the rest of the fruit, which, what does that rest of the fruit have in it? It has the seeds that, we usually spit out too. And so when they spit out or sometimes poop out the seeds, those seeds grow into new plants, and we get places like tropical rainforests that are, regenerated by bats. So all of these things are really important benefits that we get from bats.
Yeah, it sounds like bats make our meals possible in some ways by pollinating, but also by protecting some of our fruits from pests. That's so
Exactly.
cool.
Yep, they do.
And we've learned so many fun facts about bats, but I'm sure there's some more. So what are some other fun facts our viewers should know about bats?
Ooh, this is something that I discovered when I was studying bats, is that bats have sparkly poop.
What?
Glittery guano. It sounds kind of weird, but so the bats that eat insects, they're eating tons and tons of insects. And insects have exoskeletons, which are, hard parts like their body can be shiny, or their wings can be a bit shiny. And so when the bat crunches all those body parts up, it turns into sparkly poop. And so this picture is,
wow.
this picture is me when I was in Australia studying bats, and I got to go inside this cave that had 40,000 bats inside. And we had to go put some data loggers, which are little temperature readers, inside the cave. And you can see all that black stuff there. That is all bat guano. And we got to kind of walk up the giant 30-foot mound of bat guano, which was quite a cool experience. Pretty surreal,
30 feet of sparkling bat guano.
It literally glistens. It kind of like with your headlamp, it like kind of glitters. It's pretty cool.
Wow, that's kind of spooky and also kind of pretty, it sounds like.
It is spooky, but very neat. Yeah. So that's one of my favorite bat facts.
Yes, that's absolutely an amazing fact. And now we want to answer some questions from our students in classrooms that are watching about bats.
Awesome.
So one of our first questions is Allison from Anaheim, California, and she wants to know, how do you know if bats are poisonous or not?
Oh, great question. So there are not actually any poisonous bats in the world. So that makes it easy for us when we go and study bats. We know they're not going to be poisonous. We do always wear gloves when we catch bats, just to protect ourselves and protect them from anything we might have. But yeah, they're not poisonous, so that makes our job a little bit easier.
Absolutely, that's good to know. And I'm wondering too, then, do you worry about the bats while you handle them? Because we saw the picture of you holding it. How do you keep the bats safe while you handle them?
Yeah, great question. So we're trained by experts who know how to do it. And basically we're very gentle. So we actually have my little demo bat I can show. So, you have a little bat there, obviously we'll wear gloves, but we kind of just hold it like this with our thumb there. And you don't have to squeeze. You don't want to squeeze because that could hurt them. And then they kind of just sit there, and we can then weigh them and measure them, and then release them. They go back into the wild when we're done. But we're very gentle. Yeah.
That's good to see and to hear. Thank you, Dr. Kristen. We have another question from Mila from Kenmore, New York, and she's wondering, why are bats black?
Ooh, you like my demo bat? Yep.
Yeah.
So many bats are black or brown, because again, it goes back to that adaptation of camouflage. A lot of most bats are out during the night. And so being a dark color helps them, blend into their environment, so that things like owls and other, birds of prey cannot get them when they're flying around. So yeah, so that dark fur really helps camouflage them.
Absolutely, that makes sense. And Mrs. Ventura's second grade class is asking, why do bats sleep during the day?
Another great question. So we think part of it is that there's a lot of food out available at night. If you think about in the evenings during the summer, when the sun's starting to set, what's starting to come out? You have mosquitoes, you have moths, all of these insects start coming out at night. And so there's a lot of good food available for the bats, so they can eat a lot. And also, again, going back to predators, there are fewer predators out at night. So it's easier for the bats to fly around and get their food without becoming food themselves.
So that's another adaptation for bats.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And we've got another question about bats. Kelsey is asking, how small and what are bats like when they are born?
Oh, I love the size question because it's so cool. So the smallest bat in the world is called the bumblebee bat, named because it's about the size of a bumblebee. It's about the size of your thumb tip. So just the tip of your thumb, and it weighs less than a penny.
That's
and then we have,
small.
Crazy small, but then we have crazy big. Some of the flying fox bats that eat fruit, have wingspans up to 6 feet long. So from wingtip to wingtip. That's longer than I am tall. But they only weigh about 2 pounds. So even though they're big wings, they don't weigh a lot. So there's everything in between. Most bats are about the size of your palm. And then I forget, what was the second question?
The second question was, what are the bats like when they're born?
Bats are adorable when they're born. They are hairless for the most part. If you've ever had a hamster or a rat or a gerbil as a pet, kind of looks like that. They're little beans basically. And they quickly open their eyes. They quickly start growing the fur. And they obviously have wings when they're born. And eventually after about 6 weeks, they can start flapping and they have fur and they can start flying after about 6 weeks. But one of the really cool bat facts about bat moms is that bat babies can be up to 1/3 of the mom's body weight when it's born. Wow. So that would be like a human mom giving birth to like a 2 or 3-year-old kid size. Like, I don't know how they do it. Like, they're humongous, but they do. And the moms can fly with the baby up until they're half her body weight. So bat moms are very strong and powerful. And they only give birth to 1 baby per year. So they're not like rodents that have big litters. They only have 1 baby per year for the most part.
Wow, it sounds like they're kind of superhero moms, though. That's very impressive.
They are. They really are.
And I think I have one more question. Mrs. Manahedran's class wants to know, how long do bats live and how do they hang upside down? So we got another 2-part question.
Awesome. So I love the life question because it's a very crazy answer. So if you think about rodents that are about the size of most bats, rodents live 2 to 3, 5 years. The longest known bat in the wild was 41 years old, and it was a small bat. So yeah, they can live decades. That would be like if we lived to be like 300 years old. So I think bats might actually have the key to long life and the fountain of youth in them somewhere. And then why do bats hang upside down?
Why do bats hang upside down?
Yeah, so the cool thing about bats is that they don't, when they hang upside down, the blood does not rush to their heads. Oh. So, if we hung upside down for more than a few minutes, all the blood would rush to our heads. But that does not happen to bats. And they hang upside down because it really lets them roost or hang in really unusual places that predators cannot get to. So they can hang from a cave wall. Like, they could probably hang on my bedroom wall right here, even though it's pretty smooth. They can hang under bridges where snakes and owls and hawks can't go and get them. So again, it's another really cool adaptation to help protect them from predators.
Absolutely. And we actually do have time for one more question. So we have a question from Savannah in Kenosha, and she's going back to those super cute cotton ball bats, those Honduran white bats.
Yes.
And she's wondering, are they still safe at night? Can they camouflage themselves at night if they are white?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm not sure. I would imagine if they're flying around in the moonlight, they might be a little more obvious, right? Because they're white fur. But they tend to be flying, those bats tend to fly around more in dense kind of vegetated forests. And so I think the trees kind of help protect them a little while they're flying around. That's a really great observation.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for the answer too, as well, about the Honduran white bats. So I think for that, that's our last question. I'm going to turn it back over.
Thanks, Lauren. Wow, such amazing questions from our live audience today. And actually, we had a question, like a final question for you, Dr. Kristen, but I saw it come in the Q&A, and Mrs. Black's second graders wanted to know, what can kids do to help with bat conservation? How can people help these amazing animals?
This is one of my favorite questions. So thank you all for asking that. Like I showed with my Girl Scout Silver Award, it really never is too early to get involved in helping bats. So this picture here is building bat houses. So you can build bat houses. And I do have a demo house that I can show if we have a second, I can show
Yes,
this.
please do. That question actually came in. People want to know, how do I build a bat house? So
Awesome. So this is a demo. It's not painted yet. Normally you would paint or stain this, and it's interesting because it has a cutout in the front so that you can see inside of it. So normally, this would go all the way down to the bottom there. But this is a bat house. There are different sizes, different shapes, but this is a standard one. And basically, you have the bats flying up, and then they land right there, and then they crawl up into these chambers. Can you all see in there?
wow.
They're like really like 3/4 inch, 1/2 inch, quarter
They
inch.
look tiny, yeah.
They are, but most of the bats we have around here love really tight spaces, and they like to kind of bundle up together. So you can fit a couple hundred bats in a house like this, up to 100 bats per square foot, which is pretty cool. Yeah, and so you would paint this and put this up. We have, where I work at Bat Conservation International, we have some information about how to put up a bat house and where to put it up. And you can find some really cool kits, like DIY bat house kits online. So definitely, check out some of those kits. But yeah, they're really fun, and they provide a safe roosting spot for bats.
Are they that thin too? Like they're only a
Yeah,
couple.
so yeah, this
they
is
don't
like,
take up too much room.
no, you do need to put them up like at least 12 feet from the bottom of the bat house off the ground so that, the bats can swoop out. But, this is a few inches. The bigger tends to be better with bat houses, but this is a good one. So yeah, so you can put up bat houses. You can plant a bat garden if you have, like at your school, you have a garden, or in your backyard. What you would do is you would plant night blooming flowers that open at night and attract nocturnal insects that the insect eating bats can then feast on. So you'd have your own kind of little food chain in your yard, and you'd be providing a buffet for the bats. And then, yeah, I think one of the things that we can all do, no matter where we are or how old we are, is we can share how cool and how awesome bats are with others. So, when we get off of here, I would love if everyone would go home today or go to your friends and tell them at least one of the cool bat facts that you learned today. I think everyone can do that. And really, the more that we share about bats, the more we help them.
I love it. That's so true, Dr. Kristen. And all of you can learn more about bats by reading some of our favorite bat stories from our early childhood and STEM magazines. Check out the chat for the link to this special resource hub that we created for this event. Dr. Kristen, we can't thank you enough. We learned so much today, and I think everybody watching on Facebook and Zoom did too. Thanks to all of the students and teachers who joined us, but it's not over yet.
Yes, thank everyone for celebrating Bat Week with us, your Scholastic Magazines Plus family. And now we want to close with a batty dance break. So are all the panelists ready to dance?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Got my bat wings.
Bat wings.
All right, let's do it.
Dance break.
Let's move like bats. Flap your wings. Fly high. Higher. Now fly low to the ground. Go lower. Now close your wings and give yourself a big bat hug.
Oh my goodness, that was so much fun. So now I want to know, what does everyone think? Are bats spooky or are they smart? Tell us your thoughts by email or on social media with the hashtag Scholastic Magazines. We love for hearing from you and your students. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and big special thank you to Dr. Kristen. We had so much fun. Bye everyone.
Thank you everyone. Bye.